The damp chill of the Arkham forest clung to my skin like an unwelcome shadow. I had always felt a strange pull to these woods, an eerie paradox of peace and dread that haunted my very being. Each step deeper into the thicket made my pulse quicken, the rustling leaves whispering secrets I had long tried to forget. The weight of the past pressed heavily on my shoulders as I ventured closer to the clearing that had become infamous in local lore. As I approached, an unsettling metallic tang filled the air, thick and suffocating, a familiar scent that clawed at my memory. My stomach churned, recalling stories of Peril's grim work echoing in hushed tones around town. The trees loomed taller here, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers eager to ensnare me. Each footfall felt like a countdown, building anticipation for what awaited me just beyond the veil of foliage. I stepped into the clearing and was met with a sight that made my gut clench painfully. There they were, 6 young men, barely out of college, strung upside down from a sturdy branch as if hanging from some grotesque art installation. Their youthful faces had been stripped bare of life and hope, eyes wide open but devoid of any spark. A chill raced down my spine as their lifeless forms swayed gently in the wind, casting eerie shadows across the ground. This was more than just a gruesome spectacle, it was a visceral reminder of how close I had come to meeting this horror myself. My heart pounded as I recalled every chilling story whispered about the Blackwood Stalker, the creature that thrived on fear and despair, preying on the unsuspecting souls drawn too close to its dark heart. I could almost hear its breath in the rustling leaves around me, taunting me for my trespass. I carried the weight of my rules with me, an unspoken pact forged in desperation with a monster who knew how to play this game better than I ever could. They were the only things standing between me and that same fate, giving me a flicker of hope amidst impending darkness. The reality of what lay ahead began to crystallize within me. This time I wouldn't just observe. This time, I would act. I stepped closer, compelled by some primal instinct to bear witness yet again to this horror festering within my beloved woods. My hands trembled at my sides as I fought against the urge to turn back, to flee into safety rather than risk everything by getting involved in something so monstrous. But curiosity burned brighter within me than fear ever could. "Are you here for them?" A voice broke through my tumultuous thoughts, low and gravelly yet somehow familiar. Startled, I spun around, squinting through the shadows toward its source. At first glance, he looked like another casualty of this place, haggard features framed by unkempt hair and wild eyes that seemed too aware for comfort. "You shouldn't be here," he continued as he took a cautious step forward, concern etched deeply across his brow. "What do you know?" My voice trembled slightly despite my efforts to sound authoritative, revealing just how rattled I truly was. He hesitated before answering. "More than you might want to know." His gaze flickered towards the gruesome scene behind me before locking onto mine again with an intensity that made my heart race even faster. "I'm not afraid." The defiance in my tone surprised even me. It was true enough on some level but still veiled under layers of trepidation. His laugh held no humor, only bitterness laced with genuine concern for someone clearly lost in their pursuit of answers. "That's what they all say until it's too late." "What do you mean? What happened here?" A knot twisted in my stomach, urgency seeped into every word as they slipped from my lips. "The stalker doesn't just kill," he replied slowly as if weighing each word carefully against untold horrors hidden beneath them. "It chooses its victims based on their fears, manipulating them until their minds unravel." His eyes darkened further still as he took another step closer. I swallowed hard against mounting dread clawing at me from within, not just fear for myself but also for those who had fallen before me amid these cursed trees. "Why are you telling me this?" My voice dropped lower as doubts crept back into focus again, despite wanting nothing more than answers right now, even if they came wrapped tightly in nightmares too big for anyone else to bear alone. "Because you're walking into something you don't understand," he said solemnly while glancing back towards where death hung suspended above us both like a specter waiting patiently for its next meal, a reminder that life itself teetered precariously close between existence and oblivion right there within those woods. In that moment everything shifted inside me. I realized that whatever bond tethered us together now was about more than mere survival. It meant facing our fears head-on instead of succumbing helplessly beneath them like so many others before us who dared cross paths with something ancient and terrible lurking beneath Arkham's surface all along. With newfound determination igniting within me alongside lingering dread still coiling tighter around every breath taken, that night would mark either our liberation or doom depending entirely upon choices made moving forward from there on out. As dusk began settling deeper over those haunting woods, I knew one thing. It was no longer about simply uncovering secrets buried deep among shadows cast by towering giants above. Rather, it became clear we were fighting not merely against darkness itself, but also against our own very natures laid bare beneath watchful eyes eternally hungry seeking out despair wherever found. And thus, I stepped forward once more into perilous unknowns lying ahead, the weight heavier upon shoulders now straining under dual burdens yet fueled onward resolutely towards whatever awaited beyond fear's grasp ahead. I remember that moment when the air turned frigid around me, a ghostly chill creeping into my cabin as if the very essence of dread had seeped through the walls. The temperature plummeted, and I glanced around, my heart racing with unease. I could scarcely believe what unfolded before my eyes, a translucent figure materializing just beyond the flickering candlelight. Pia's presence filled the small space, her ethereal form shimmering with an unsettling glow. "You just laid there, didn't you, John? While I was torn apart." Her voice echoed through me like a haunting melody, each word piercing my soul with sharp precision. The accusation hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. I stood frozen, my hands trembling at my sides as guilt surged within me, hot and unrelenting. The memories of that fateful night clawed back to the surface like a terrible tide. Her eyes bore into mine, shimmering pools of sorrow and rage. I felt an overwhelming surge of shame wash over me as she recounted her agonizing end. "I called for you," she said, her voice breaking like fragile glass. The image of her pleading face from that night replayed in my mind, a vision that haunted my dreams and taunted my waking hours. I swallowed hard, desperate to respond but unsure how to bridge the chasm between us. "Pia." I didn't know what to do. I managed to stammer out, though deep down I understood that excuses wouldn't erase the truth of her words. The air thickened with tension as she continued, drawing me into her tragic story, a tale of despair entwined with hope. "My adopted son Michael is going into those woods," she said, her voice trembling now with urgency. "He doesn't understand the danger lurking there." My heart clenched painfully at her mention of Michael. It struck a chord deep within me. "Pia," I said softly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on my shoulders. "We need to stop him." Determination ignited within me like a spark catching flame. The thought of another innocent life potentially falling prey to the Blackwood stalker pushed me forward. I couldn't let history repeat itself. "Stop him?" Pia's expression shifted from anger to desperation as she stepped closer, her spectral form casting elongated shadows on the floorboards beneath us. "You can't even save yourself." Her words wrapped around me like chains binding me to my past failures. "I can try," I insisted, steel creeping into my voice despite the fear gnawing at my insides. "If we work together," an idea struck me suddenly, one that had always seemed foolish but now felt necessary in this supernatural encounter. "What if we use a Ouija board?" It could help us communicate better. A flicker of hope sparked in her eyes as she considered my suggestion. A backup option? She sounded skeptical yet intrigued by the prospect. Yes. My own excitement bubbled up in contrast to our dire situation. If we can harness its power, maybe we can reach out for answers, find a way to confront peril together. Pia nodded slowly, uncertainty still clouding her features but a glimmer of resolve beginning to form beneath it all. I hurriedly rummaged through an old trunk in the corner of the cabin until I found the worn board tucked away inside, a relic from years past that felt almost alive in my hands. As I set it on the table between us, a heavy silence fell over us once more. Anticipation crackled in the air like static electricity before a storm. I brushed away dust with trembling fingers and positioned our hands on its planchette, my pulse thrumming loudly in my ears. "Is anyone here?" I whispered hesitantly into the void surrounding us. To my astonishment, the planchette began moving slowly beneath our fingertips, guiding us toward letters on its surface as if drawn by an unseen force. Yes. My heart raced with both fear and exhilaration at this unexpected response. Something was truly happening here. Yet dread coiled tightly in my stomach at what might come next. "Who are you?" Pia's voice trembled beside mine as our connection deepened. Again, the planchette moved. "Fr." A shiver ran down my spine as realization dawned upon me. It was feeding off our terror, the same darkness lurking within those cursed woods we sought to conquer together. "What does it want?" Pia asked breathlessly. There was no mistaking her growing apprehension mirroring mine. Before I could answer or suggest another question to ask, something shifted within the cabin. The temperature dropped further still, causing goosebumps to erupt across my skin while shadows danced along every surface around us like restless spirits seeking release. "I don't know," I replied shakily as panic clawed at me from within. Adrenaline coursed through every vein. I needed control over this situation before it spiraled out of reach again. Suddenly there was a loud bang against one wall. The sound reverberated violently throughout every inch of wood surrounding us, and Pia recoiled instinctively while clutching at herself protectively. "What was that?" Her voice rose sharply with fear now evident in every syllable uttered aloud. "I don't know." My breath came out raggedly. Confusion swirled chaotically amid terror's embrace as dark figures materialized just beyond our view, silhouettes shifting ominously against flickering candlelight until they coalesced fully into form. The shadows took shape, twisted visages reflecting despair etched deeply upon their ghastly features, and they advanced towards us with purposeful intent. "No! Stay back!" My voice rang out defiantly despite how weakly it trembled, instinctively moving closer toward Pia, the ghost who knew too well what horrors lay ahead while seeking solace amidst our plight. Yet even then it was too late. They lunged forward, their grasp reaching towards both myself and Pia, intent on dragging us back down into oblivion where despair thrived eternally amongst echoes long forgotten. In that moment, I realized something profound. Perhaps confronting these spirits wasn't merely about facing fear itself, it was about embracing courage against unimaginable odds. I remember that day at the diner, the scent of burnt coffee and greasy fries filling the air, a stark contrast to the growing tension in my chest. I sat in a booth near the window, nursing my drink and replaying Pia's words in my mind. Suddenly, a shadow fell over my table. I looked up to see Sarah leaning in, her sweet voice like honey, until it turned sinister. "The forest is mine. I'll be watching you, John." My skin prickled at her words, an icy shiver racing down my spine as I struggled to comprehend her meaning. Was this another warning from the woods? I wanted to question her further, but she slipped away before I could gather my thoughts. The warmth of the diner now felt stifling, and I could hardly swallow another sip of coffee as dread pooled in my stomach. What was happening? The weight of unanswered questions pressed heavily on me as I left a few dollars on the table and stepped outside into the crisp air. Back at my cabin, unease settled like a thick fog around me. I fumbled with the door handle, still shaken from my encounter with Sarah. Just as I pushed it open, a thunderous crash erupted behind me. The front door exploded inward with a violent force that sent splinters flying across the room. My heart hammered against my ribs as I dropped instinctively to the ground. I saw 3 figures standing there, rifles pointed directly at me, cold steel glinting ominously under the dim light. Panic surged through my veins like wildfire. They wore masks that obscured their faces but didn't conceal their menacing presence. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't how things were supposed to unfold. In that chaos, Pia manifested beside me once more, her translucent form flickering with urgency amidst the turmoil. She seemed unfazed by their weapons as she raised her arms defiantly, an unseen force emanating from her spectral body. "Get back!" she shouted, and without warning, she slammed 2 soldiers against the ceiling with incredible power. For a brief moment, hope surged within me. Perhaps we could fight back against these intruders together. But then I saw it, a strange device they wielded that hummed ominously as they aimed it towards Pia. My heart sank as realization dawned on me. Whatever this technology was, it threatened her very essence. The flashbang detonated with a blinding flash and an ear-splitting roar that vibrated through me like an earthquake. I shielded my eyes just in time to see Pia's form being sucked into its core, her desperate cries echoing through my mind as she vanished from sight. A profound sense of loss washed over me. Grief enveloped me like a shroud as I stood frozen in horror. Before I could process what had happened, darkness closed around me like a suffocating blanket. When consciousness returned, I found myself sprawled on a cold metal table in a stark white room, my wrists shackled tightly with handcuffs that bit into my skin. Confusion flooded through me as panic clawed at my insides. What had they done to Pia? Where were those soldiers now? A figure emerged from behind an imposing desk, a man dressed in a pristine white lab coat whose cold smile sent chills down my spine. Drive West leaned closer and his voice dripped with amusement as he spoke. "We did see your post, John. We've been watching." His words hung in the air like smoke from extinguished flames, suffocating any remaining flicker of hope within me. "Why?" My voice trembled despite my attempt to sound defiant. He laughed softly but without warmth. "Curiosity can lead one down dark paths, or perhaps you're just another pawn in our little game." My gut twisted at his insinuation. They had been monitoring everything, my every move, and now they expected something from me? Desperation clawed at me fiercely. There was no way I could let them manipulate or trap me further. "Let me go!" I shouted suddenly, struggling against the bonds holding me captive. Drive West's expression remained unchanged, a sinister calmness lurking beneath his facade of professionalism. "Oh no," he replied coolly, "you're far too valuable for that." At that moment, understanding dawned upon me. This wasn't just about the Blackwood stalker anymore. It was about something bigger than all of us, a web intricately woven through fear and control, and somehow I was tangled right at its center. Pia, the name slipped from my lips unbidden as panic surged anew within me, the last fragments of her fading essence still echoing in my mind like whispers lost among shadows. "Ah yes," Drive West remarked casually, "the ghostly ally you thought could save you." He leaned back in his chair with an unsettling grin plastered across his face that made bile rise within me again. My heart raced furiously against its confines. There had to be a way out. The walls felt oppressive now, their sterile whiteness closing in on all sides, as if mocking my plight for freedom. "I will find her," I declared fiercely despite feeling utterly helpless strapped to this table under his watchful gaze. Drive West's laughter reverberated off the walls, a chilling sound devoid of empathy or understanding, and all hope seemed to dim further within those stark confines where dreams turned hollow and reality felt more nightmarish by every passing second. I needed to break free from these chains before they consumed not just myself but also any remnants of hope still lingering within this place suffocated by darkness beyond comprehension. The sterile, oppressive silence of the interrogation room pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. I sat across from Drive West, her lab coat stark against the cold metal table that separated us. The chaos I'd just endured felt worlds away, replaced by this clinical environment filled with harsh fluorescent lights and the faint hum of machinery. I fought against the sensation of vulnerability creeping in, reminding myself that I had to maintain control. "I need answers," I demanded, my voice wavering but determined. "What did you do with Pia? Where is she?" My heart raced as I watched her expression morph into one of practiced indifference, a mask that only intensified my frustration. Drive West leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled beneath her chin as if contemplating my worthiness for an answer. "You're in no position to make demands," she replied coolly, an edge creeping into her tone that sent a shiver down my spine. "You have no idea what we're capable of." I leaned forward, desperation clawing at me. "I've seen what you're capable of. People are dead, and you just sit here playing with chemicals like it's Legos." My voice rose with anger, ricocheting off the sterile walls around us. The thought of those lives lost, Mikey's friends swinging lifelessly from trees, flashed through my mind like a cruel film reel. Drive West's gaze hardened at my outburst. "This is not a game," she retorted sharply, though her calm demeanor seemed to falter just slightly under the weight of my accusation. "We're dealing with forces beyond your comprehension." I clenched my fists on the table, feeling the heat rise within me as I searched for any sign of humanity behind her steely exterior. "You talk about forces, what about 16A? What is it?" A name whispered in hushed tones came flooding back to me, a chilling reminder of the horrors lurking just beneath the surface. She hesitated for a moment too long before responding, her voice low and deliberate. "It's a prototype weapon designed to combat entities like the Blackwood Stalker." My pulse quickened. This wasn't just about containment, it was about destruction, a horrifying secret that made me question their true intentions. The tension crackled between us as I realized this was more than an interrogation, it was a battle of wills. "So you're telling me you're experimenting on things you don't fully understand? That sounds reckless." I couldn't hold back any longer, indignation surged through every fiber of my being. "Reckless?" Drive West echoed incredulously, leaning forward as if trying to intimidate me into submission. "You think facing these creatures is simple? We are doing what must be done to protect humanity." "Protect humanity?" I laughed bitterly, incredulous at her self-righteousness while anger simmered just below the surface. "By sacrificing innocent lives? By keeping secrets?" She narrowed her eyes at me but didn't respond immediately, which fueled my fire further. "If you want me to believe you're here for good reasons, prove it. Make sure Michael gets into college and provide compensation for all victims' families." The urgency in my voice mirrored the desperation I felt inside. This was about more than just revenge, it was about redemption. "Your conditions are impractical," Drive West countered coolly after a long pause filled with palpable tension that hung thick in the air between us. I could feel adrenaline coursing through my veins as I pressed onward despite her dismissal. "If you want to keep your secrets hidden and maintain control over these supernatural forces, I said firmly, you need people on your side who believe in what you're doing. Dar. West regarded me thoughtfully for a moment before she spoke again. Something flickered behind her eyes, a hint of respect? Or perhaps annoyance? It was impossible to tell. You know far less than you think, she warned softly but firmly, as if trying to re-establish dominance over our interaction. I know enough. I shot back defiantly while taking a deep breath to steady myself, my mind racing through every detail I had gathered thus far about Pia's plight and Michael's impending fate. Suddenly, there was an unexpected noise, an electronic beep emanating from somewhere outside the room that interrupted our standoff and drew both our gazes towards the door. What now? I muttered under my breath as dread washed over me once more. Drive West's expression shifted slightly, alarm flashed across her face before she masked it quickly with steely resolve once more, a reaction that only heightened my anxiety. What danger lurked behind that door? Before either one of us could act further, it swung open abruptly, revealing an armed guard who stepped inside without invitation. "Doctor," he said curtly while eyeing me suspiciously before turning his gaze back to Drive West, a signal exchanged silently between them. "We have an incident," he continued gravely before adding with urgency laced through his words, "they've breached perimeter security." My heart dropped at his announcement. Chaos erupted again beyond these sterile walls, the very thing I had feared most coming closer with each passing second. "We need to leave now," Drive West commanded abruptly as panic seeped into her voice, the composed facade crumbling under pressure. In an instant, everything shifted dramatically, from mere verbal sparring in this clinical space to racing against time toward uncertainty beyond these four walls where unspeakable horror awaited outside our small haven. Before we could gather ourselves further or even formulate a plan amidst growing turmoil around us, I bolted towards the door, following Drive West instinctively, my pulse pounding hard against my ribcage as adrenaline surged through every nerve ending, urging me forward into danger once again. With chaos erupting around us and urgency propelling us onward into uncharted territory, I realized this would define not only what happened next but also who we were becoming amid shadows lurking ever closer. I remember the sharp buzz of machinery as I sat strapped into the monitoring station, my pulse quickening with every beat. The command center was a stark contrast to the primeval woods that flickered on the screens before me. Tactical feeds displayed the agency's team moving cautiously, their shadows cutting through the thick foliage of my familiar haunt. My hands trembled at the thought of what awaited them: peril, a creature I had once narrowly escaped. A sudden crackle erupted through the comms, and my gut twisted at the sound of his voice, deep and guttural. "Your worthless rules will only keep you alive for so long." The words slithered through the speakers, a taunt that sent a chill racing down my spine. I could almost see him lurking in the darkness, his presence palpable and menacing. I leaned closer to my screen, straining to make sense of what was unfolding. In that moment, the 16A device activated, a pulsating light casting eerie shadows among the trees. My heart raced as it illuminated Peril's shadowy form, drawing him closer like a moth to a flame. It wasn't a weapon, it was bait. A desperate attempt to lure him out into the open. "They're walking right into his trap." My voice shot out over the comms, urgency flooding my tone as I grasped for clarity amidst the chaos. "He's taunting them. He knows their moves just like he knew mine. They need to break formation now." The weight of responsibility crashed over me like a tidal wave. I had to guide them or watch them fall victim to his wrath. As I scanned their movements on screen, anxiety clawed at me. My fingers hovered nervously over the override button for a critical drone, a gamble that felt reckless but necessary based on my intimate knowledge of Peril's patterns. This creature thrived on fear and manipulation, every decision needed to be precise. One wrong move would lead to disaster. "Activate Drone 6, I commanded, my voice steadying despite the adrenaline coursing through me. There was no time for hesitation. I pressed down on the button with conviction, sending one of our drones soaring into the air above the treetops. In an instant, I watched as it zipped toward where peril had begun to prowl, a dark silhouette against moonlight streaming through branches above. My heart pounded in anticipation as I waited for feedback from the drone's camera feed, praying for any sign of success. Suddenly, alarms blared through the command center as red lights flashed violently around me. The drone's feed transmitted chaotic images. Peril lunged forward with inhuman speed, snapping at an empty space where our team had just been moments ago. He knew they were there, he could smell their fear. "Fall back! Fall back!" I shouted into the comms again, desperation clawing at me as I urged them to retreat from danger while still trying to maintain control over my own spiraling thoughts. The atmosphere in the command center shifted dramatically. Tension hung like fog around us all as agents scrambled to follow orders relayed by my frantic voice. Every second stretched painfully long as they moved further into danger instead of away from it. Then came an ear-splitting roar that sent chills racing down my spine. Peril had found his target. My breath caught in my throat when one of our agents screamed over comms before static filled their line entirely. Panic surged within me. This wasn't just another mission, it was personal now. I gripped my chair tightly as if it could anchor me amidst this spiraling chaos and horror unfolding in front of me on those screens. My childhood woods turned battlefield against an unseen enemy driven by malice and darkness itself. With each passing moment, dread festered inside me like poison. If I didn't act now, if I didn't take control, they would die out there. "Drone 6 is live," someone reported nervously beside me amidst all chaos swirling around us. Their uncertainty mirrored mine but lacked clarity about what we truly faced here today, at least until now. "I need eyes on that creature." My command rang clear through static-laden channels echoing back at me, the urge to save those agents coursing stronger than fear gnawing at my insides. What felt like hours condensed into mere minutes as we worked frantically together, trying desperately not only for survival but also understanding how best to confront this relentless predator hellbent on destruction. Finally, the drone captured footage of Peril slipping deeper into shadows while tracking our agents. My instincts kicked in again. I needed something else. "Reconfigure targeting parameters." Frantic words spilled from lips before they even formed consciously in mind. I could feel adrenaline pumping wildly through veins, urging action over contemplation. Time blurred entirely around us. The high-tech command center became an island adrift amid stormy seas while those brave enough ventured forth unknowing what awaited them beyond each twist and turn among trees cloaked thickly with mystery and danger alike. Just then something shifted within me. A relentless desire ignited deep down, igniting clarity amid disarray. I had not come this far merely watch helplessly from sidelines. I would not let fear claim victory today. "Override activation complete," someone confirmed, finally interrupting tumultuous thoughts surging inside head. Drones engaged. Heart pounding faster than ever before as hope surged, renewed strength within spirit urging forward boldly, unafraid toward unknown dangers lingering behind every shadow beckoning ever closer. At last, a fleeting glimpse emerged upon screens, light-piercing darkness unveiling secrets buried beneath layers long hidden away, waiting impatiently reclaim rightful place, emerging victorious, unshackled freedom once more. And just when victory seemed within grasp, the unimaginable happened. I watched the exhausted team emerge from the depths of the woods, their faces pale and grim as they crossed the threshold into the command center. A strange mix of relief and unease washed over me. Peril had been temporarily contained, but I knew better than to believe that this was a true victory. The air was thick with tension, and I could almost taste the lingering fear clinging to them like a second skin. They didn't have to say it, I saw it in their eyes, the shadows of what they had faced. "Good work out there," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper, not wanting to disturb the heavy silence that enveloped us. Each nod exchanged felt like an acknowledgement of shared trauma, a silent agreement that we were all in this together yet utterly alone in our experiences. Ted approached me, his expression weary but resolute. "We need to talk about Pia's son," he said, his tone grave. My heart raced. This was a conversation I had long anticipated but dreaded nonetheless. The families of the victims deserved answers, and I was determined to ensure they received them. "Agreed," I replied firmly, searching his face for any hint of reluctance or dismissal. "They deserve closure, especially after what happened." His reluctant nod signaled small victory amidst this murky game we were all tangled in. It felt like taking one step forward only to be dragged 2 steps back by an unseen force. I moved away from the group and found solace in a quiet corner of the command center where classified documents lay scattered across a table, files containing information about Perel's patterns and behaviors. The weight of my new role settled heavily upon my shoulders, transforming me into something I had never envisioned, a researcher deeply entwined in this morally ambiguous conflict. As I began poring over the documents, my fingers traced lines filled with disjointed data, figures and statistics painting an unsettling picture that mirrored my own chaotic thoughts. My first task was to analyze the readings from the T-16A deployment. Distorted signals mixed with chilling audio logs haunted me as I sought clarity amid chaos. I felt my heart sink when I encountered audio clips capturing desperate whispers echoing through branches, a cacophony of fear, confusion, and pain that had once pervaded those woods. Each recording brought with it vivid flashes of memories past, the haunting cries for help that still echoed within me. They were not just recordings, they were remnants of lost lives woven into this dark tapestry. With each passing minute spent dissecting these logs, realization struck me hard. My past inaction had led me here, deep within this murky world filled with shadows and regrets. Redemption seemed distant yet tantalizingly close at hand. Perhaps it could be found through uncovering truths hidden beneath layers of horror. The tension surrounding me escalated as I pieced together fragments of information regarding Perel's nature, an elusive creature thriving on fear and despair like a parasite feeding on its host. My thoughts whirled. How could something so primal exist alongside humanity? Suddenly, one particular document caught my eye, a report detailing previous encounters with Perel's kind dating back decades. My breath quickened as I absorbed every detail outlined within its pages, weaknesses noted during other confrontations, theories posited by researchers who had come before me, all were threads weaving together stories of survival against insurmountable odds. I glanced around the room again, agents clustered near monitors still discussing strategies while fatigue hung heavy on their shoulders like an oppressive blanket threatening to suffocate hope itself. In that moment, something ignited within me, a determination fueled by both guilt and purpose. "Listen up." My voice broke through their murmurs unexpectedly strong despite my racing heart. I needed them focused now more than ever before. We must gather every piece of intel we have on Perel if we want any chance at defeating him decisively. Eyes turned towards me curiously but soon transformed into expressions tinged with conviction. Perhaps they sensed it too, the urgency coursing through each word spoken aloud resonating deeper than mere sounds escaping lips. The atmosphere shifted again, intensity rippling through us as we began collaborating more fervently than before, gathering intel while grappling with our fears head-on, forging bonds based on shared understanding born from facing nightmares together. Hours passed in frenetic energy spent analyzing data while formulating strategies against our common enemy lurking just beyond reach. Finally, a breakthrough emerged amidst endless sea-swirling numbers revealing patterns previously obscured from view. I remember staring at those figures illuminating screens. It was not just information anymore, it was potential, hope. It represented everything worth fighting for, even amidst darkness threatening to consume us entirely if left unchecked. Just then an alarm blared, suddenly interrupting intense discussions. The command center trembled beneath its weight as if echoing warnings, inherent danger lurking nearby. My stomach twisted anxiously as dread seeped into every crevice around us, a reminder that victory remained fleeting until truly secured. Situation update. A voice rang clear across comms demanding immediate attention. I tensed, instinctively anticipating news about movements detected nearby. The images flickered upon screens revealing agents preparing for another encounter, their faces reflecting determination mingled with uncertainty mirrored perfectly mine. My heart raced again. I realized then how intertwined our fates had become. This wasn't merely about survival anymore. It transcended individual battles fought separately. It now encompassed collective struggle against something greater threatening existence itself. As adrenaline surged anew through veins propelling forward, I resolved fiercely never again let fear dictate choices made. Together we would rise against whatever darkness loomed ahead, determined reclaim light lost amidst shadows creeping closer, threatening consume every aspect life once vibrant now suffocated under weight despair. In this new reality woven tightly together, we'd write new stories forged not from tragedy alone but resilience against overwhelming odds, faced bravely, standing united, striving toward reclaiming lost futures. And thus began another chapter unfolding underneath these stark fluorescent lights, illuminating paths unknown yet beckoning courageously onward toward destiny waiting patiently just beyond horizon. I remember the moment I stepped into my new office, the sterile walls painted a clinical white, contrasting sharply with the vibrant memories of the Arkham woods. The scent of pine and damp earth still clung to my thoughts like a ghost, an ever-present reminder of the darkness I had escaped. My heart raced as I took in my surroundings. Here, amidst rows of monitors and neatly organized files, I felt both a sense of relief and an unsettling nostalgia. Months had passed since the chaos in the woods, but the weight of guilt still pressed down on me. I had overseen the transfer of funds for Michael's college tuition, an act that felt like a quiet triumph amidst my spiraling emotions. It was a step toward making amends for Pia, for all that had happened. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I typed out financial reports, knowing they represented more than just numbers. They represented hope for a future, something that Pia would never experience. As I settled into this new role as an analyst, I found myself deciphering cryptic patterns that emerged from reports about Peril and his kind. No longer did I work solely for survival. Now, it was about containment, keeping others safe from what lurked in the shadows. The evolution of my responsibilities filled me with purpose, albeit one shrouded in grim realities. Every day demanded focus and precision, requiring me to tune into details that could mean life or death. I often caught glimpses of my reflection in polished surfaces around the facility, a stark reminder of how much I had changed. The man staring back at me was not just John, the recluse haunted by his past. He was John, the analyst driven by a determination to protect lives from monsters lurking not just in forests but also in human hearts. My heart swelled with both pride and sorrow at this new identity forged through trials and losses. At times, moments would strike me unexpectedly. A familiar noise or scent would transport me back to the woods. One afternoon during lunch break, I stood by a window overlooking manicured lawns, far removed from tangled thickets yet somehow reminiscent of nature's embrace. The chirping birds outside brought fleeting solace while simultaneously stirring memories of laughter and friendship long lost among those trees. In these quiet moments, I could feel echoes of old fears creeping back into my mind, a reminder that darkness wasn't easily dismissed. Although I was away from Arkham's dense foliage, shadows still danced at the edges of my consciousness. They whispered to me about unfinished business, about confronting those fears head-on rather than letting them fester unnoticed. One day as I reviewed documents regarding containment strategies designed to deal with newly discovered entities similar to Peril's kind, an urgent message flashed across my screen: emergency meeting, recent activity detected. Anxiety coiled around me like vines snaking up ancient trees. I knew what this meant. Something had stirred again in those very woods where I once fought for survival. "Gather everyone in Conference Room A," came an order through intercoms, a stark reminder that our work here wasn't done yet, not while such threats loomed ever closer on our periphery. As agents filed into the room around me, tension crackled in the air like electricity before a storm. It hung thick between us as we exchanged nervous glances filled with unspoken fears. We were united by shared experiences, by knowing too well how quickly things could spiral out of control. The lead investigator began outlining reports detailing strange sightings near Arkham, mysterious figures appearing at dusk among trees no longer just confined within urban myths but manifesting once more into reality. My heart pounded as he elaborated on peculiar sounds echoing through night air, the same sinister whispers I'd once experienced firsthand haunting each word spoken aloud. Reports indicate increased activity correlating with lunar phases, he continued gravely. I leaned forward, instinctively drawn closer despite rising dread swirling inside me. It couldn't be happening again. What we face isn't just peril anymore, there are others. My breath quickened as fear took root deep within. I recalled all too vividly how easily darkness could spread if left unchecked. The memories surged back, the screams echoing through trees, friends lost forever wrapped tightly within grasp malevolent forces wielded over them. "I need to go back," I blurted out before rational thought could reign in, impulsive words tumbling forth unbidden from lips trembling slightly under weight, gravity pressing upon shoulders heavier than before. The room fell silent, the weightiness settling around us like fog obscuring familiar pathways leading towards safety. My colleagues exchanged wary glances while grappling with possible consequences lingering behind every decision made now. "John," Ted finally broke through silence cautiously, his tone measured yet firm against backdrop palpable tension permeating atmosphere, "we can contain this from here." "No." A surge of desperation propelled forward, spilling over quietly restrained emotions bubbling beneath surface, waiting patiently ready unleash chaos built up, years spent amidst darkness shadowing every moment since embarking on journey toward understanding itself. "I know what it takes. We have to confront whatever's out there." Their eyes softened momentarily, reflecting empathy mixed trepidation, worn like armor-forged battle scars endured together. But duty weighed heavily against desires, lingering longings reaching beyond confines, sterile walls separating us from world, brimming uncertainties beckoning ever closer, threatening consume everything loved, cherished beyond reach. "We can't risk losing more lives," Ted reiterated passionately, seeking reassure doubts threading silently through minds cast adrift, navigating perilous waters, uncertain futures awaited beyond horizon where unseen dangers lingered, hidden behind veiled shadows lurking quietly waiting opportunity strike. I felt determination rise within me, filling spaces previously occupied, fear giving way, strength fueled courage surging deeper, urging forward against tide, overwhelming dread clawing desperately toward hope, ignited brighter than ever before, burning fiercely, illuminating path ahead not yet revealed, fully unknown, but one worth pursuing nonetheless. Today, when I look back at those pivotal moments unfolding within conference room walls, cemented bonds strengthened through shared struggles faced bravely, standing united against encroaching darkness surrounding us, I discovered resilience dwells inside all willing embrace fight become champions protecting lives lost finding strength together conquering fears faced unwaveringly. And see began another chapter unfolding beneath sterile lights illuminating paths unknown beckoning courageously onward toward destiny waiting patiently just beyond horizon.